Three Questions with Andy Richter podcast. Again, new episodes of this podcast airing weekly on Tuesdays, wherever you get your podcasts, right here on the Rich Eisen Show on Peacock. So the three questions, I know what they are, but I'll give you the floor on what the questions are for this podcast.
They are, where do you come from, where are you going, and what have you learned?
Okay.
And they're just kind of, I feel like I had been approached, Team Richter,
yes, sir.
Top-notch professionals that they are,
yes,
had bugged me for a while. They said, you should do a podcast. But I always felt, because I have friends that are true, originators of the podcast business. And I still feel like an old man about it a lot, where I'm like, really? The people are, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts.
Okay.
I listen to Howard Stern. He's been my podcast for 1,000 years.
Exactly.
So, but I still, it's the same thing. Like I can't, like somebody that's like really super successful on YouTube, that doesn't translate to me because I'm old. I'm like, really? And it's like, yeah, this guy's, outpaced you by earnings by 4 times. And I'm like, YouTube guy. Like, yeah, YouTube guy, old man, wake up.
Exactly.
So when they were telling me I should do a podcast, I resisted. And I was like, I felt like a Johnny-come-lately, and I just was like, dilettante. And then I finally thought, what the heck? I'll go ahead and do it.
Yes.
And so I thought what I really want to do is have the kind of conversations that I would get to have with people in commercial breaks on the Conan Show, which is like the stuff I want to know about, which is like how many kids were in your family? What's your work day like? That kind of thing. And then also I like, I've been in therapy for 1 million years, and I like when people can take the facts of their life and extrapolate, well, this is why I'm like this,
right,
because of these things that happen. I think that's just always an interesting conversation. So I thought those 3 questions kind of encompass that kind of notion of kind of thinking about where you come from and how it makes you who you are. And so I decided, I'm going to do the podcast. And then like a week later, this will tell you about the communication over at the Conan organization.
Yes, sir.
About a week later, I hear, Conan's doing a podcast. I was like,
every time.
I was just, why didn't I say yes a month ago? I could have beat him to the punch. But it's all fine now. Everybody has a podcast.
Well, no, that is not true. And certainly the guests you're getting are stupendous. I mean, your recent guests have included Judd Apatow, Will Arnett, Kristen Bell, Bill Hader, who's awesome, and Henry Winkler, who was in that chair about a month ago. What a delightful human being.
He's fantastic.
Oh, my God.
He was my first in-person after COVID, my first, in person. Because, pre-COVID, it was all in studio, face-to-face.
Sure.
And then it went to computer. And he was my first one back actually face to face.
He's amazing.
Yeah,
I love
and
that
I just talked to Jake Tapper yesterday. We recorded one yesterday.
Okay, very good. I've heard of him.
Yeah. I mean, I get really Rachel Bilson's on the show this week.
Okay.
I get really good guests, but it's all I just talk to people that I want to talk to, which is nice. I don't. It's not like.
Is that why I haven't been on? Is that what it is? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. No,
I mean, to be frank, sure.
Straightforward.
I mean, I'll drive to El Segundo for you, but I'm not having you on my show. I mean, come on.
I love that. Andy Richter here on the Rich Eisen Show. 3 Questions with Andy Richter podcast. And it's funny how you mentioned how you're asking questions or you want to know. These are things that you'd want to know based on conversations you'd have in commercial breaks with guests over the years sitting there on Conan. With Conan. So was there ever a guest who overshared and like the commercial breaks coming back and you kind of like had to, you kind of had to be like, I'm glad I asked, but I mean, we're coming right back. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Is there a moment like that sort of thing, Andy? Something like that.
Fabio.
I love that, by the way.
I know. We're already starting good.
If this was a Mad Lib, I would have put that proper name in that blank space.
Fabio told us a story on air about a stalker confronting him at a breakfast place where he was having breakfast with a friend. And in the commercial break, which I think I can't remember what the details, but it just sounded like it was kind of neutral, but it seemed crazy. Like,
Yes.
the police had to be called and all this stuff. And then in the commercial break, we were talking to him, and we were like, "That was nuts." He goes like, "He said yes, but I didn't even tell you He said I didn't tell on the air the best part that she had a Ziploc bag full of her pubic hair, and she dumped it on the table." And I don't know if I can't remember if it was on his food or not. He goes, "But she must have shaved everything. It was a lot of pubic hair." And then he said, "And then when I get out, I get out to the."
It's so funny.
I know. And he said, "And when I get out to my car is covered with mashed potatoes and peas." We're like, "What?" He's like, "Yes, covered with mashed potatoes and peas." What's mixed signals to be sending to somebody,
Mixed signals.
Yeah.
It's a great way to
Yeah,
put Yeah. Mashed potatoes and peas.
Yeah.
Fabio's mixed signals.
Fabio's mixed signals or Fabio's mashed potato and peas could be a great fantasy team name, Chris. You might have to write that down.
Could be.
You might have to write that down.
Could be.
Oh my God.
I like that Chris is advertising another show on this show.
Wow.
But he has a cup
That's
right
my
there.
own show.
That's
His
his
own-
own show.
my own
'cause,
I know,
you
he's doing his own show over there,
Yeah.
probably. I hear mumbling. He's going to do
my
it quiet.
Gosh. Oh my God. It's one of those moments. Like, I guess, why didn't he say that on the air?
I don't know.
mean,
I don't know. I'm probably, it's probably some legal reason I probably just blew it for him. So, sorry, Fabio.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite guest to meet, sit on the couch with? Who was
Well,
that
like
for
the
you,
people
Andy?
that I'm thrilled to meet is like, it's not ever exciting because I don't say a word to them. I go like, "Hi," because I always just feel like Michael Caine. Like, what am I going to say to Michael Caine? But just to sit this far from Michael Caine and look at Michael Caine is like, it's freaking Michael Caine right there.
Right, yeah.
So it would be people like him, although there were like David Bowie was local, so he used to do he's just fantastic.
Right.
I mean, in addition to being a musical genius who gave us like some of the best popular music of the last 150 years, he also was like really funny, really fun, and just super nice. Like, and it got to the point where we just got to be chatting with David Bowie. And then there's also just the people that you can't believe. Early on in the early days, because we weren't getting the big names, so we were getting people like Shelley Winters, which I'll take a Shelley Winters over an A-lister any day.
Like a good Poseidon adventure story, you'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, and because
Towering
it's
Inferno.
like, do you want sort of the same story that you've heard on 3 other shows, or do you want a literal like ticking time bomb of madness? Give me the crazy. That's the fun part. But we had Tony Curtis on the show.
Oh my gosh, that's so
cool.
cool.
And Tony Curtis shared something he had in common with James Brown. James Brown, yet another person on the show that I did. I was like, "Hi." But both Tony Curtis and James Brown, our studios were on the 6th floor in Studio 6A. Across the way is Live at 5, the local news.
I remember that, sure.
Yeah.
Sue Simmons?
Sue Simmons
Jack
and
Cafferty?
Chuck.
Chuck Scarborough.
Chuck Scarborough, yeah.
Oh, I grew up in New York City, man.
And I mean, they're like my neighbors. Like, "Hey, Chuck, what's going on? How's the weekend, Chuck?" But all our dressing rooms are along this busy hallway that is that like people are running with tapes for news and, national news and, different, prop things are being carted down the hall. Both Tony Curtis and James Brown took a chair and put it in the hallway and sat out in the hallway. Just watching I don't know, like whether they're just like, because the dressing rooms weren't very big.
So like pagers are walking down the hallway and people are walking.
There's Tony freaking Curtis
and
or James Brown. Yeah, both of them. It was just weird that they both, whether there was some claustrophobia or they just liked being recognized. there are famous people that really like being recognized, so, whatever. That's whatever,
Instead of a folding chair inside 30 Rock.
I don't hold that against Tony Curtis. They can do whatever they want with their Tony Curtisness.
Andy Richter here on the Rich Eisen Show. How did you meet Conan? How did you ever cross paths with him?
Well, we knew a bunch of people in common already. And if we had never, if we'd never got connected for this show, we would have ended up knowing each other.
Okay.
Because I haven't figured out, and it took a couple years of working with him before we both figured out that we had been at a yard party at Bob Odenkirk's house like 2 or 3 weeks before we met, and just didn't happen to speak or talk to each other, get introduced to each other. So I knew Robert Smigel, who is Triumph the Insult Comic Dog.
Yes.
He was the original, head writer, producer of the Conan show. I knew him through a friend that had worked on SNL. And he and I just hung out socially in L.A. When he was out here one summer working on the ill-fated Hans and Franz movie.
Oh, my God.
He came out here to make a Hans and Franz movie.
And you were on that movie?
No, I just met him. I just met him through this friend, and we used to, drink and drive, basically. The Hans and Franz movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger, after Last Action Hero, he said to them, he's like, I can't make fun of myself anymore. So they just got...
That was the end of that?
Yeah, because I guess he was going to be like their fairy godmother or something. And
now, that would have been good.
I know, it would be very heavily... It would have been fantastic.
So that's how you met Smigel?
And that's how I met Smigel, was just, through friends and hanging out and summertime in L.A. And then Conan got the job. And I heard about it just like everybody else did. It's this Simpsons writer got this job, and I saw the clips of his test interview, that he had done, and then I got a call from Robert saying, "Hey, I'm going to be working on this show. Would you meet this Conan guy?" And I said, "Sure," and because it was a free lunch. And we went to Junior's Deli on Westwood Boulevard, which isn't there anymore. And we just hit it off immediately. We just both were immediately stupid with each other and knew. And and also too, I could just get a sense that I could be as dumb and gross and stupid and silly as I wanted to be. And I knew it was like a job interview, but it did, like when they brought me my knish, I just said, it looks like a and he howled, and I thought, I knew that was a risk to take at a job interview, but I was like, this is...
Yeah, I did that for the NFL, and it's amazing they still hired me. That's really weird.
It's a different kind of job, It's
right.
So, and then we just hit it off, and Robert told me that he said to Robert, hire this guy, just hire him. And Robert said, let's let him write a packet first. So I wrote up a packet. I was at my then fiance's house up in San Francisco. Yeah. And I typed, all she had was beige paper. So I had to type up my packet on beige paper. Yeah, on sort of ecru. Because there was no, but I'm not going to go buy white paper. It's it'll still work. So
yeah, of course.
Sent it to him, FedEx it to him, and and they liked the ideas. And then I was the first writer hired. I came there, and Rockefeller Center was on the 9th floor.
How
with
amazing
about
is that?
5 other people at that point.
I bet.
Yeah.
But, go into 30 Rock and go to work every day. Come on, man.
I've heard people say, Stern will say that he feels like that building is kind of anti-comedy, and that he had such an unpleasant experience working at NBC.
Right.
But it's NBC Radio, whereas for us it was a clubhouse in a national monument, and it didn't stop us from dropping things onto the street,
right?
And literally one day a 5-gallon bucket of Super Balls onto 6th Avenue is a lot of fun.
I bet.
From 9 stories up, wow.
No kidding.
Wow.
How did
we waited until nighttime? But we would throw them out during the day, and it just because they would bounce for so long.
Did one get back up to the 9th floor?
No. They just would bounce, and you just be people walking what just whizzed by me, as a Super Ball. So I loved working in that building, and I felt it was like an honor to work in that building for just what that building has meant to television and stuff. It's the same. I did the Alec Baldwin match game, and in that studio, it's a studio in New York City. There's pictures on the walls of Truth or Consequences, and Kitty Carlisle and Joan Rivers doing these game shows, and it makes me feel like I'm like a TV professional, like I'm on freaking game shows, the same as Kitty Carlisle.
And, by the way, I'm such a game show freak.
I love them. I get to host them now and then. So
you're lucky.
Yeah.
Part of me feels, Andy Richter, I was put on this planet to give away cash and prizes. I mean,
well, I'm waiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
what do you got?
I don't know if we have any party gifts for you, Andy, but I mean, wow. Okay, that's pretty cool. 3 questions with Andy Richter. I feel like I already asked where you come from. Where you're going. I feel
I'm
like
from Illinois.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So are you a Cubs fan?
Cubs fan. Okay. Yeah, Cubs fan. Although the Ricketts make it harder and harder.
And you don't mean some sort of a virus.
I don't mean a vitamin D deficiency. I mean
the scurvies make it harder.
I mean the
owners.
The owners. They just because having them win the World Series was such a thrill, and I also too. I'm a late onset baseball fan, and baseball's the only thing I really care about. Like all the other sports kind of happen around me, and I kind of, hear things by osmosis. But baseball's the only thing that I really became interested in. And like I say, it was within the last 10, 15. It started with I would watch the playoffs because the baseball season's so long, and and it's hard to get really up for a game in June.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Game
like
59.
Yeah, like what's the stakes,
Sure. Right.
But the playoffs, it's so manageable because there's only a set amount of teams. There's only a set amount of rosters that you really have to be aware of, like who is who. And there's just something that's just so simple, and the tension. It's all about the tension
Every
and
pitch.
the release.
Every pitch is amazing, Andy. Like say game 59 in June. Runner gets on first base with an out, and you're like, okay, we can get out of this inning. That happens in October, like season's over.
Right.
Guys on first.
Absolutely.
It's a nothing game in the second inning. One guy on, they walk the leadoff guy. Season's over.
Yeah.
We're going to lose this game. We're going to lose the play. Like it's really a mental
and as
exercise.
In like a storytelling sense too. As someone who aside from Conan work, like I work in television, I tell stories. That's kind of like, that's what I aim to do. But you've got with every pitch 20 different things that can happen. And you wait, and there's like the slow, rub the nose and then look and no to the sign, and there's just this build up and then the throw, and it could be a home run, it could be a foul, it could be the end of the game. And it's like in narrative terms, it's just, there's so much that can happen in that simple moment if you're, actually focused on it and paying attention to it and aware of the context.
Did you have that cathartic moment when the Cubs won, like so many?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Although, like my brother, who's one of those people, like the last time I went to a Cubs game with my younger brother, he knew a ump by name to yell at him. Like he knew like that a-hole, Yes. And I'm like, that's a little bit much to know the ump's names and to have a grudge against a particular ump.
It's called study time.
I know. But for me, it's like, that's pretty deep. But my brother, when the Cubs won, told me, he said, I feel like I can finally walk away from a bad marriage. He's like, this has been a bad marriage, and now that this has happened, I've been released from caring. And then, like when they do sell all those guys, Javi Baez and Rizzo and Chris Bryant, and I understand, it's business and they have to do that, and that's how it works. But then it's like now they're gonna, Contreras and Ian Happ are going supposedly.
Looks like Robertson could too.
It's just it's a bummer, and it's really hard. I mean, again, I get it. It's a business, but it's really hard. It's made me more of a Dodgers fan. I'll tell you that.
Well,
much.
Then,
that's
fighting words, I think, for some people.
Whatever. I used to go to. I always try and go to at least one. Cubs at Dodgers.
Yes.
And this year, and I had tickets this year and got COVID. Very mild COVID, but
Okay,
you
good.
know, but I couldn't go. But I would always like there were years because you know I'd watch the Dodgers too, and there were years where I'd be kind of torn and be sort of like, oh, I went
no,
here.
sorry about that.
That's all right. I would be torn, and then when the Cubs would inevitably lose, I would be bummed, and that was what told me I'm still mostly a Cubs fan.
There you go.
But it's kind of now, you know, I mean, I did sort of feel like that series, I felt like, would it be so bad for the Dodgers just to let them win one? Let them go back to Wrigley.
Wow, you're softening.
I know. But I mean, you know, it's like a bully picking on a nerd at this point, and the Dodgers are playing them.
Andy Richter, thank you for coming on here.
Sure.
3 Questions with Andy Richter podcast every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Come back anytime, sir.
Thank you so much,
Good
Rich.
to see you. That's Andy Richter here on The Rich Eisen Show.